Okay, so today, as we know, the webinar is going to be on invoicing with the Apptivo platform. So we're gonna cover a couple of the basics for those of you who are brand new to Apptivo, but we're mostly just going to focus on how to create an invoice and like what integrations are available, how we're going to receive the payment, and what happens from step to step, and also the various integrations we have with the Invoices app. So like, how do I create an invoice from an existing project or from a sales opportunity? Those such of things. So this webinar is going to be for basically anybody in the financial department or anybody in a small business, so business owner or anything like that, and then of course any freelancer or contractor, independent consultant who has to handle their own invoicing. And a little bit about me: I'm a product manager here at Apptivo. I have an engineering background. I've been programming for a while. I spent a while in quality assurance, and I'm currently located up near the Apptivo HQ in Fremont, California. And I do deployments, I support, and I train users on Apptivo. All right, so let's talk quickly about the invoicing flow. I know this chart might look a little bit confusing, but what I want to do with this is show you the flexibility of how we can create invoices in Apptivo. So generating a simple invoice, which is all some of you are looking to do, is very simple. It doesn't involve any of this. It's just create an invoice, and then you'll generate the receivable when it's paid. But for many of the other users of Apptivo, one of the primary benefits of our invoicing software is the ability to create an invoice out of other areas that you're already managing inside of the system. So you'll notice here we'll start off at the very beginning, which is an opportunity. And that's the earliest point in which you can begin gathering up data that's going to go into an invoice. So the opportunity is that in the CRM suite, it's part of your sales process. But even during the sales process, you're acquiring like the products that they're interested in. You're creating the customer data. You're creating little pieces of data that are going to directly translate right into the invoice once you're eventually ready. So the idea is that you can start gathering up info here, and we do store it in a manner that can be converted into the invoice later. So from the sales opportunity, there's several different paths you can go. So I can go from an opportunity straight into an invoice, which would happen in certain scenarios where it's a very simple service. Maybe if I'm just selling them a product, I don't really need to manage anything. It's just I take my opportunity, I ship out the product, and I'm only doing a couple products a week, so I don't need to manage the other details. I might just go straight from an opportunity to an invoice. But if I'm going to have a more complex scenario, like let's say maybe I need to issue out a quote for the user, I can go from the opportunity to an estimate and then to an invoice if I'd like. Or you'll notice there's also many different areas that we can generate the invoice from. So we could go from an estimate to a project to an invoice, or you'll notice from an estimate to a project to a timesheet to an invoice. Basically, the idea is that we're going to flow from the sale, which is the opportunity and the estimate. Then you're going to float into the fulfillment, typically, if you're managing that in Apptivo. And that's where you're doing project management to track the hours that you're spending on a service, or maybe you're using timesheets, or a sales order, which is if you need to take in the order for a physical product that you're going to sell to the customer, and then you need to manage the actual shipment of dispatching that product out to the customer. And then we also have a work order, which is if you have services and you need to dispatch one of your employees off to a third-party site to go deliver the service and potentially use some products involved. So all of those are different ways of actually providing your service or products to the customer. And at the end is the invoice, where you're actually going to collect payment for these services or products rendered. And yes, after the invoice, every time you issue an invoice, obviously the goal is to get paid, which is why you would generate a receivable at the end. So that's the general flow of the Invoices app. I just want to give a quick overview before we dive into the details of it. So right here, I'm going to come back to this slide at the end of the webinar. But the rest of the webinar, we're actually going to be going through the application itself. And I'm going to show you firsthand how to create your first invoice. I'll talk about some of the configuration settings and some of the various features available. And we'll give you the tools that you need to go start generating invoices for your business at the end. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring up a web browser, and we're going to go to apptivo.com. Sorry, seems we're having some GoToMeeting issues with the web browser. That'll be one. There we go. Okay, So for those of you who are brand new, let me give you the quick couple-minute introduction to what Apptivo is. So Apptivo, it's a cloud-based business management platform, and we have different applications inside of our platform. In fact, we have over 50 total applications involved. And we've split these applications into various categories. So you have your financial applications, which is what invoices and estimates belong underneath, and also the receivables app. These are all part of your financial suite. And then you have a CRM suite. We have project management, supply chain management, basically every tool that a business needs to operate. So you'll notice a couple of those apps that I mentioned are all in these different areas, which is really what Apptivo is all about, is integration between these various applications that we have. So we have over 50 total apps. They all do one small specific purpose, but the idea is that they talk to each other and they're able to share data across each other to completely automate your business flows. So that's what gives us the capability to go from your CRM system where we have a sales opportunity, track all the details, and move over to financials and issue an estimate. Then we can move into project management to track our hours and create timesheets. And then we move back into financials. So the idea is that your data is going to follow you from step to step to step. You're never going to have to re-enter anything, and your apps are always going to be able to work seamlessly with each other. So with that, we'll go ahead and we'll log into my demo account. As we mentioned, it's cloud-based, so every user is going to get their own email and password to go ahead and log in. And we're going to go into our demonstration from Glocal Tech. Now, first, just to get around the application, if you're brand new, when you go into the app, you come into what we call our central home page, and we have a series of links over here. So I can go view the news feed, which shows me what has been going on in the business. So if any invoices had recently been paid or recently been created by a colleague, I would be able to see them right here. And if there was something related to the invoices, I could actually click on it and go view the invoice. So since this is an invoicing demonstration, I can show you how this newsfeed can actually be filtered. So if I'm the finance person and all I'm really interested is changes to like the invoices or the receivables, then I can actually filter down this newsfeed to show me what's relevant to me. So I'd be able to select all apps. I can go to financials and say what has been going on in invoices. And now I can see, hey, here Kenny, he just created a new invoice for the customer Max Lawn for $100 4 days ago. And if I wanted to view that invoice, I could do so just by clicking the link. It would take me into the Invoices app, and I could view that app. So, but let's talk about if I wanted to go create an invoice or if I want to go search through all my invoices. Then that's where we want to go into the Invoices app. So as I mentioned, there's over 50 total apps, and we can browse them by category. And those same apps that we saw on our Apptivo website are available in this navigation across the top of the page. So you can see here I've got like projects, leads, contacts, but these can actually be customized for whatever you want. So let's say I'm the financials person. I want to customize this where I've got invoices and receivables up front and center. So I could go access them by clicking more, and I can go to financials, click on invoices, but that's a few different actions I have to do with my mouse. So I have the option to hit Customize My Apps, and instead I could actually make invoices one of my top apps. So here I'd be able to select invoices from this list, and that'll become available with one click from wherever I am inside of Apptivo. So let's go ahead and we're going to take invoices and let's do receivables as well. Okay, so actually I'm glad this came up. So it looks like I don't have receivables added. So if you run into this scenario where you find an app, you're looking for an application that you don't have available in these lists, then what we can do is we can go and actually add the app from the App Store. So here I see I don't have receivables, and that means I can go click in the upper right. You'll see a link for App Store. And then when we come into here, we're going to have a list of every single app that's available in the system. So just to keep in mind, most brand new users who come on the system, they're very rarely using more than a few apps. So it's very common if you're just looking for invoicing, you'll sign up, you'll utilize maybe 4 or 5 applications total. But the idea is that everything is always stored here in the App Store for you to access and use later on. So here, I'm going to find the receivables app and click on Add App. And now when I go back to my list, the receivables app will be available. So I have the option now to go to Customize My Apps once again, and I'm going to make receivables my number 2 app. Okay, so now I've got it set up for somebody in my position who I need to work with the invoices very commonly. So let's go ahead and go into the Invoices app. So I'm just going to click on this link that says Invoices, and it'll take me to what we call the app homepage for invoices. And here I want to show you a couple of the general controls. So right in the middle, we'll see that same newsfeed, which is identical to what I did when I filtered that newsfeed on the homepage. And then we get a list of recent invoices that we touched on. So all the invoices that I've been working with lately will pop up right here. But then you'll notice when I scroll around, I have this left column, which is a navigation, and also this bar across the top, which never move. So these are going to stay with me throughout the app. So when you're bouncing around Apptivo using the various features, you can always look in the upper left, and you can find the app that you're currently browsing right here. And if you ever want to get back to this home page, you can either click on the app name right there, or there's a little home icon right here. So it always takes you back to the main central home page of this app. And let's talk about these other two buttons that you have available right here. So these are two different settings. So one of them is notifications, which every user has access to notifications. And this is how you stay up to date with what's going on in Apptivo. So that newsfeed I showed you, by default, every event that can occur in the system, so like an invoice getting deleted or getting sent out to a customer, it both show up in the newsfeed. If there was an event that I felt like I did not want to see, I would have the option to uncheck the box, and so that would never show me when an invoice is voided within my newsfeed. But let's say there's an option that is very important to me. So for example, when an invoice gets paid, then I can also subscribe to receive an email about that. So that means whenever an invoice gets paid, regardless of who paid it, whether it was paid online or whether my employee manually entered it, Apptivo is going to send me a quick email and just let me know that an invoice has been paid, and then I can log in to check out the details. So as soon as I hit save, then I would have those permissions set. And just keep in mind it is user specific, so one user, like maybe just your accountant, could subscribe to the invoice payment being recorded, but maybe somebody on your sales team wants to know whenever an invoice gets created, something along those lines. And that covers the notifications. This other link is settings, so this is only for administrators of the system. And we're going to come back to this in a minute, but just keep in mind there's tons of different settings that can be changed about the app that change the way it works. But we designed the Invoices app to be very simple for you to be able to create your first invoice without even doing any sort of configuration changes to the settings. So with that, we're going to go back to the home page, and I just want to give you a quick tour through this left column. So here on the left is just the various ways that you can filter and group together your invoices. So I could very quickly bring up a set of invoices by status. So I want to see all the invoices that I've sent out that haven't been paid yet. I have them available here. If I want to look at all the invoices I've voided, I'm just able to filter them down by status. And we also have a couple quick views for invoices that require special attention. So we can see all the past due invoices, so the ones that we've sent out that have gone past the expiration date that we need to follow up with and get paid for. And we can also just get a list of every invoice that's in the system sent out to the user that has not yet been paid. And in addition to that, we have a couple other types of special features inside of the invoices. So let me talk a little bit about the types of invoices. In Apptivo, we have 3 or 4 types of invoices, depending on how you look at it. So the first of which is just your basic invoice. I'm going to hit Create New Invoice. I'm going to type in some products or services, and I'm going to be done with it. And that's just where I'm manually typing in everything. I'm creating it on the fly. It's usually meant for very basic transactions, typically only for like a very small company. And then we have some other variations of this basic invoice, or really of any type of invoice. So another one is a recurring billing invoice. So we have 2 different types of recurring invoices. The first is recurring billing, and the second is what we just call a recurring invoice. So the recurring billing, it has to be used with one of our integrated online payment options. So Authorize.net or PayPal are the 2 companies we support. And what that means is you're going to send the invoice. On the invoice is going to say that this is a recurring invoice, meaning they're going to be billed the value of this invoice on whatever frequency you define. So let's just say, for example, I'm going to create an invoice for my services. I'm a consultant, and I have a $500 monthly retainer. So I could create a recurring billing invoice that says the value of this is $500. It's for 1 month of consulting, and you're going to be billed on the first of every month for this automatically. So that means once they accept the first bill, and on the first of every month, it's going to automatically debit their account through this online payment service. The other very similar type of invoice is what we call the recurring invoice. And it works the same where you're going to set up the frequency. I could say, okay, it's a $500 monthly retainer, send out on the first of every month. The difference is the recurring invoice is a request for payment, meaning it's going to send the invoice to the customer, and the customer is going to pay it every single month. Whereas on recurring billing, they're going to accept it the first time, and the payment occurs automatically on every month after that. So that's just a slight difference. We'll dive a little bit into the details on that afterwards, but from that, I want to move on to the last type of invoice, which is an invoice that gets generated from another area of Apptivo. So those are all the basic invoices where I just hit create new invoice or new recurring invoice. But you notice we have a ton of other flows, and this is what that flow chart I was showing you is. I can take any data from another app in Apptivo, and then I can generate the invoice for it. So that means it's actually going to pull in like special timesheet data or special work order data, depending on the exact flow that I'm going through. Okay, so the reason I was explaining all of that is because you notice I have all the settings turned on in this demonstration firm. So I've got a special menu just for recurring invoices. I've got a special menu just for recurring billing. And I've got these various invoice queues. So all of these are related to those special types of invoices. But keep in mind that each one of these can be disabled if your business does not utilize them. So let's say, for example, recurring billing. My company doesn't ever do recurring billing. In that scenario, that's one of the settings we have available, where I can go into payment settings, and I can disable recurring billing. And once I update that, then when I come back here, you'll notice my recurring billing option is no longer available. So for you brand new users, you're going to come in, and none of these special features will be enabled. So that means when you first navigate in, you're just going to have all the basic menu items like this. Okay. Now, last couple items that you want to be aware of here, we have a payment reminder system. So as I mentioned, you can filter by your overdue invoices, but we can also actually set up Apptivo to send a special email message to them. So we can have it, actually there's two different ways we can do it. It can either queue up and send it later, or we can actually have it send automatically. But basically what it allows you to do is I can set up a late message for 1 week after or 2 weeks after. And each time, each frequency, or each past due notice can have a different email that goes out to the user. All right, and then the last section is reports. So just like all of the other applications, we have reports in Apptivo, and they're broken into two kinds of reports. So I could do like a general summary if I want to see how much invoicing I've been doing, how much money is outstanding, how much I've been paid, and what my collection rate is. I can do a report for that, just give me some quick intelligence on how my billing department is doing. So you can see here, I've only got a 10% invoice payment rate. Obviously, this would be a problem in a real business. And I can also do our custom reports. So that's any search that I can do. So if I want to find like all of my paid invoices with an immediate payment term during a certain time period, I can set up whatever sort of filters that I want, and I can always save one of these later. So these are my paid invoices with immediate terms. And I have the option to share that with my colleagues. And whenever I save that as a report, that actually becomes available here. So if I wanted to rerun that search and get that filter of invoices real quickly for me just to rerun that and get that set of data back at any time I want. Okay, so those are the general controls of the Invoices app. That's how you kind of navigate around how you manipulate your data once it's in there. But I mean, now we got to talk about creating an invoice. So let's create an invoice right now. So as I mentioned, there's those 4 types of invoices. We're just going to create the basic one. We're going to create an invoice. We're just going to add some services on there, and we'll be done with it. So with that, I'm going to hit Create Invoice. We're going to go to Create New Invoice. And here we'll be asked to select whether we're going to include products, services, or both. And we can configure this so it doesn't ask us every single time. In this scenario, we'll just say that we're going to add, we'll do both. Okay, so up here, we just start filling in the basic invoice details. So here, either I have an existing customer that I'm going to send out this invoice to, or I could potentially need to add a customer. So this is an autocomplete field. I could type in a customer name, or if this is a brand new customer, we allow you to generate that right here. So I could just start keying in my customer details, and what this will do is it'll actually create a customer over in the Customers app of the CRM system, so it's stored for later, and at any time you'll be able to bring up this customer record and see their invoice history, which I'll show you in a moment after we finish this. But for this example, I'm going to go link it up to one of my existing customers. you'll see it'll automatically pull in the sales representative who's assigned to that customer. This is just stored in the CRM already. And I'd be able to select a contact of the customer who this is specifically addressed to. And this is an optional step. Okay, so now we've got a couple other fields that we want to fill in. So we have the payment term. Immediate just means they need to send us payment right away, or we can allow them a certain time window in order to pay the invoice within. And all of these can be completely configured. So these are just the default payment terms that Apptivo sets you up with. And then here we'll select our template. And you'll notice I have several templates here. By default, you're only going to have one template. Our default template looks quite nice. You don't need to do any modifications. But after we create this first one, I'm going to show you how we can actually customize the invoices to look just how your business wants them. So this is the look and feel template of the invoice. Then here we do have multi-currency support in Apptivo. So if you've enabled this setting, you can actually pick which currency you would like to collect for this invoice. So we'll just leave it as USD by default for now, but be aware that feature is there. And then we'll select the date of the invoice. 9 times out of 10, this is going to be today, but you could potentially predate or post-date an invoice if you so wish to. And lastly, we have a discount that we could apply. So if you just want to give them a 20% discount, it's real simple, or if you have a flat amount that you're going to provide to them, you can do so right here. And then we have this notes to customer section. So this is templated. We can change this within the settings, but this is just a short little message that's going to appear both on the PDF file and on the web page that gets sent to your customer once we're done. And these fields right here, these are actually custom attributes. So these are additional fields which a certain business may or may not need. These don't come installed by default, but Apptivo has this feature called custom attributes, which lets you build whatever fields you want. So you can see in this example, maybe I'm signing a contract when I send this invoice, and I want the contract details cited on this invoice when I collect the payment from them. Or maybe I have some details about like when I'm actually going to deliver this product out to them. So I've got some additional fields here. Basically, you can define whatever you want, and I could fill those in at the time of creating the invoice. And they have the option to either be visible to you or be visible to you and your customer. So that's something we can actually set up inside of the template. Okay, and then down here, we actually have to add the value onto the invoice. So before you mentioned, or we saw that we selected services and products. So here we have 2 sections for each. One thing I want to point out is you'll notice each line that I add, so if I had like 3 service lines, they have these extra fields right here. These, once again, are custom attributes. Just like these fields up here that are present for the entire invoice, we can have custom fields present for each individual line item that goes onto the invoice. So I can actually select attributes about this specific service or this specific product that I include. But in this example, let's just go ahead and say that we're going to, we're a tech company, we're going to go install some equipment at this site. So we'll just we'll charge them some installation services. So we'll say this is going to take us 5 hours to install. We type in the rate, and if there was any taxes that would apply to that, we'd have the option to apply them here. So what will happen with the tax codes is basically in Apptivo, we allow you to configure whatever sort of tax rules you have. It works both for all the U.S. tax laws as well as nearly every international tax law as well. So this is part of the initial setup where if you need to apply taxes to your services or products, you want to type it in. So I mean, for example, we're here in California. I could type in a code for California sales tax, and I could say it's 8%. It's not necessarily accurate, but I would key in the current values that I need to process. And then that would become available. So I could actually apply that, and if I look down at the bottom, it would apply the tax automatically, appropriately based on the discount and everything that you award. But you don't have to apply a tax code. So in California, you don't have to charge tax on services, so I could leave that blank as well. And you'll notice the subtotal right there. It's $250 for the calculation of those. And then down here, I want to add products. So in Apptivo, we actually have a separate app. It's called the Items app, and that holds your entire product database. So, I mean, we can either search our existing product database if this is something we've sold in the past, so I could begin keying it in and it would autocomplete, show me the products available. Or, once again, if I didn't have a product yet, if this is my very first time, I can create a product right now. So if I hit New Product right here, it's actually going to allow me to say the details, and I can type in whatever I want. So if this was like some sort of hardware equipment, I could type it in here. But let's say I already had it in there. So it's going to be like a Dell server that I have to add, and they need 3 of those. You'll see the description I have stored in my product database gets automatically ported in. The price I have from the product database already pulled in. All I've got to do is, well, one, I got to add the quantity, and then I can specify if there's a different price. So in certain scenarios, maybe you mark up your standard price just for this customer, and I could also charge tax on it. So maybe here I need to charge the sales tax because this is a physical product. Now, one comment on the difference between your services and your products is keep in mind a lot of the time it's actually going to work well for you to treat a packaged service as a product and store it in the Items app. So let me give you a good example. Is if I have a service like this, installation, and some jobs it's 5 hours, some jobs it's 20, some jobs it's 2. That's not a very good candidate. It's not like a packaged service with a flat price. But let's say I sell these servers and I have a standard training package. I'm going to give you a 2-hour training session after any server installation. It costs $200 no matter what, and it's the same for every deal that I do. In that scenario, it actually will save me time if I store that as a product, and I include that as if it were like a physical product, but just as a prepackaged product on here. Because the benefit of that is, one, I can store the standard price. It's going to be easily searchable for me. So I don't have one in there, so I'll create one right now. And also, you can notice I can store the description about it. So I could type in these preset details. I could say it's $200, and I could even say a preset tax code that I'm going to charge for it. And what this allows me to do is now, whenever I create a future invoice, all I have to start doing is typing in 2-hour server training, and all my details are going to come through. I don't have to bother typing in the description up here or worrying about having to wonder what price I'm going to charge or whether it was consistent or not. It's just there and available for me. So I would go through. At this point, I've added my products and my services, got all my details on there. The last step right here is you're going to notice that it's talking about setting up online payments. So one of the features of Apptivo is, yes, you can use this as a standard system where I create the invoice, it sends the PDF file out to the customer, they print the PDF file and they send me a check, or they pay me through another means. But we actually have integrated with several online partners where if your customer wants to pay you electronically with a credit card or maybe through an e-check or PayPal or something, then we actually allow you to integrate where it'll send them a link to review the same invoice details, and they can pay it immediately online. So if you are interested in one of those payment options, you would actually be able to click Set Online Payment Options, and it shows you all the various options here. So on the payment methods, there's 2 different kinds of methods you'll see here. One of them is an integrated payment method, which we've got a special integration. We've worked with that third party, and we've set it up electronically where it'll actually process the payment through them. And the second type is a custom payment method, which is something that we've given you a couple basic default values. So you notice we have cash and check, but it allows you to define your own type. So some people might have a special bank wire transfer or another payment gateway where they will accept the payment, but you have to call them up and manually arrange that with them in order to accomplish that. So you're able to include these other payment types that you accept, even if they're not able to click the button and just click Pay Now. So these other values will still appear at the bottom of the invoice right below, so they're aware that they're available for them. So those integrated payment methods I talked about, the options are Authorize.net, which is very popular just for general credit card processing. Then we have Google Wallet and PayPal, which are both popular online payment gateways as well. And lastly, we have a company called Zipmark, which actually has a very, very favorable fee structure where they actually only charge you 1% transaction fee and up to a $5 maximum, versus most other businesses, they average about a 2.9% transaction fee. So there's a significant savings opportunity available through that service. But basically, I would configure the services I want. So let's say, for example, I don't want them to be able to pay through cash. I can disable this feature. That means it will not be visible to them. And also for these online payment options, the first time you send an invoice, if you want to accept PayPal, then you need to set up your PayPal account one time. And I'll walk you through the basic steps for that. So basically, if I wanted to configure PayPal, I would hit Edit, and I would have the option to create a new PayPal account, or if I'm an existing user, I can click through to the next step. And now it's going to give you some instructions. And basically, these instructions are you navigate to paypal.com, you're going to log into your business, and you have to click through a couple menus. And what you're getting to is you're finding a special API key and password that are unique to your account that allow Apptivo to communicate and submit payments directly through your PayPal account. So if I hit next here, then you'll see I've got the API username, password, and signature. So these, they're available within PayPal. And actually, it might take a moment to show you on PayPal itself, but basically we have a link that shows you each step along the way. It kind of highlighted on the previous step there. But if you need assistance, we can go to PayPal, set up Apptivo. And we have tons of help documentation. So first link right there, I'll be able to click through here, and it actually shows you, you have to click through like 4 or 5 different menu items. And these steps are different for each payment provider, but it's just a one-time thing. You run through these menus, you grab your details, and then you're going to key them into Apptivo and hit save. So I would go through, I would enable any electronic payment options that I do want to accept, and once I'm done, I can just go ahead and close out this window. And at this point, I'm basically ready to send. There's a couple more specifics which they're only needed in some scenarios, but like let's say for example I needed to charge shipping. I could key in my shipping right there. I don't really want 1 cent. Whatever shipping costs are involved. We have support for promotion codes, so you might have a coupon code that gives a 10% discount. If so, you could type in the coupon code here and apply it, just like you could on like an e-commerce site that you're used to. And we also have a system called credit notes where you can like issue a refund or accept a prepayment from a customer, and it'll automatically apply any credits that are available to this invoice. So you can see I actually have over $8,000 worth of credit for this customer. So I could just take this opportunity to use all of his credit on this, and it would reduce the total value of it. But let's say that they don't want to pay with their credit yet, that's stored for something later. I can leave it unattached, and you'll notice the full amount is still due. So at this point, I would just review my invoice. I see everything's very straightforward. It's ready to be sent out to the customer. So down at the bottom, we have 2 options. Well, actually 3 options, sorry. First of all, I could preview it. So I can click on this, and it's just going to show me how it's going to be visible to the user. So here's all my basic details. It's going to pull in the billing and shipping directly from the customer record. And here's your notes to the customer and all the individual line items. So if that looked okay, then I would be ready to save it. And the options are either I can deliver this via email to my customer right now, or I could just save it for later, so then I can go, maybe I have to review it, I have to get manager approval or something, and send it at a later date. But for this case, let's just go ahead and send it straight via email out to the customer. So when I press on Email Invoice, it's going to take the email address of the contact that I selected. I could type in any additional emails that I wanted to here. And then you'll notice it has this pre-populated message. So this can actually be configured. You'll see I have several different email templates which are available within the settings. And pick which template I want, and I'd be able to send this out to the customer. So I'll go ahead and I'll send this to myself so I can show you what this looks like. And let me go ahead and bring my email in another window. Okay, so I've just sent out the invoice. Now it takes me to the invoice details. So I mean, if I went back to the Invoices homepage, it's going to be anything that has a status of sent. Okay, and oops, just clicked another link. So it says Kenny Clark, who is that user I logged into, has sent you an invoice number 1072. There's that message we have. We'll see it's attached a PDF file, so I can go ahead and I can download this PDF file right now. And it also gives me a link to a web page. So here's the PDF file, very, very basic. Be able to scroll around here, just the total amount due, thing that we just saw a moment ago on the preview. And this web page will show the same data. So on this web page, we have all the same information, but you'll notice the differences down here. We show the payment options. So the other payment options like cash and check, they're available right here. And then we have the integrated payment options right here. So this one in particular is Authorize.net. This is the direct credit card payment. So from here, it's up to the customer to decide how they want to pay. So if I want to pay with my credit card as a customer, I would just hit Pay Now. Very, very simple. I'm going to key in my credit card details, and I'll be done. I'm going to submit it, and it's going to send the administrator an email and tell them that the invoice has been paid. But let's say that I want to send a check or I want to do a wire transfer. So in that scenario, I'm either going to give you a call at the business, or maybe I'm just going to print out that PDF file and I'm going to mail you a check. And in that scenario, where they mail you a check, it's not done electronically, we need to record the payment in Apptivo. We need to create that receivable we talked about. So if it's done electronically, Apptivo will actually automatically change the invoice status, it'll mark it as paid, and it'll create the receivable for you. But in that scenario where they sent us a check, we're going to have to record this payment manually. So when we get an email that says, when we get the mail, so the check in the mail, we would say, okay, well, this is for invoice 1072. We're going to bring it up inside of the app. So maybe we do a quick search, bring up invoice 1072, and now we need to record the payment against it. So what you'll notice is when you're looking at the invoice, I have the option right here to record a payment, or I can go over to the Payments tab, and this would show me all the payments available. So let's say that this customer, they actually only sent you half of the value of the invoice. They said, oh, well, I'm a little short on money, I'll have to send you the next half in a week. So we do support multiple payments where on this first payment, I could say they sent me a check number 998, but it was only for $2,000. And you'll notice there's a little checkbox right there for mark invoice as paid. And if I leave this unchecked, then it's going to leave the invoice status as sent. It's not completely paid yet, but it will update the balance of the invoice. So here, I see the payment comes in. This payment would appear over in my receivables app. If I went there, I would see it pop up. But now if I go look at like the overview tab of this invoice, then, sorry, let me get out of this. Okay, sorry. So over on the overview tab, then I would actually have the option to send it over to the customer. So down, if I look at the bottom, I'll see the amount paid is deducted, so the remaining is $1992.50, and I could actually send a notification of that back out to the customer. So, hey, I received your payment, but you still have the remaining $1,900 due. So I could have a different template for that if I want. I could customize the message, but you'll notice on here, or the PDF file, it'll actually give them the details. So they can kind of treat this as a receipt for payment, and also just so you could remind them that they still owe you. So if you scroll down here, we're going to see the same details available. So let's fast forward 2 weeks. Let's say they've got the new updated invoice, and now they send you another check for the remaining balance. So once again, I'm going to come to the invoice, click Payments, but this time when I hit Record Payment, you'll notice it's automatically set to the remaining balance. I could say, okay, maybe this is check 999. And for this time, I'm going to mark the invoice as paid. This is the last payment I want to accept. So what happens now is you'll notice up here, it changes the status of the invoice. And once again, the ability to send out information to the customer has sort of changed a bit. So if I go back to this Overview tab, that Send button has changed to Send Payment Notification. And once again, I have a slightly different email template, but I could change to whatever I want. And if I bring up this PDF file, it will now be slightly updated once again, where it'll show that the invoice has been paid. So up top, big red letters, paid. And down at the bottom, it'll show the total less the paid amount with a balance of 0. And at that point, everything would be completed. Your invoice is all handled. And all you would have remaining of the invoice is, of course, it would be in the Invoices app is paid for later on. But I could also go to the Receivables app. And if I wanted to see like all my receivables from check, here's everything available. I could also look like by the date that occurred, everything like this. Okay, so that's the end of the basic invoice flow. We're basically at the end of the time. So with these last couple minutes, what I would like to do is I just want to show you what might happen after the invoices and also talk in detail about a couple of the configuration settings for a little bit more advanced usage. So back into the Invoices application. Let's say you're in this scenario where you need to export this data out to another system. So maybe you need to export it out for like tax keeping purposes or something along those lines. It's a very common scenario where you like have an outside accounting software. So we do offer an export feature inside of Apptivo, and it exports to the common file format, which is IIF, which it works directly with QuickBooks, where it's a one-step import, and a lot of other popular accounting software such as Xero also support this. So there's a common flow where you go through, you can find all of your paid invoices, And it's very simple to select any series of invoices, and you can export it out to that downloadable file. And there's also several reports which allow you to get the data out and make it available in other areas. So you can see I can do commission reports, so I can get a detailed list of invoices just for like one customer, something along those lines. So basically just being able to take the invoice data and move it elsewhere if you should need to. And then let's take a quick run through all of the various settings. So here, the payment settings. There's a couple different features here. Multiple currencies. So we saw that I could select whatever currency our customer receives. That's available right here. You can actually design the software where if a customer accidentally pays more than they were supposed to, you can generate a credit note that can be utilized on their next invoice. And then we have those recurring invoices and recurring billing features, which are available, slightly more complex setup, but you can operate those types of invoices. The payment method, so same ones that we saw within the create invoice, you can always update them from here. You don't have to be in the middle of generating a new invoice. I mentioned the payment terms can be configured, and also the taxes. So the taxes, if you're a US-based company, it's pretty simple. It's usually just a flat percentage, but some countries do have more complicated tax codes, such as Canada or New Zealand, where you have to do special stacked tax codes. One applies after the other. We do have support for all of these. We have the ability to apply the tax codes, either tax for the entire invoice or the tax for each individual line. And basically, we have tons of help articles. So like, let's say if I was Alberta, Canada, and I want to know how to set up my tax codes, I can just do Alberta, Canada, tax codes, Apptivo. And we have an article for basically all the major countries out there. So you just hop on there, search for it, and it would tell you exactly how to set up the taxes for your specific region. Okay, so the one really cool thing which I haven't showed you about is the customizability. So there's two areas you're going to customize to get shown to the user. One is the PDF template. So that PDF file downloads to the customer's computer and the visual presentation of that. And the other one is the actual message that's sent to your customer. So those various emails that get sent when you're delivering the template, you can completely customize what they say and what's included within them. So first, let's talk about the PDF template. It's really common to have different templates for like different types of products. So especially if you're a larger company with multiple divisions, you might have one basic template just for like a retainer service, and then you might have one template for a long, complicated project that you operate that's several $100,000, something along those lines. So you can see here I've got several different templates, but I can create a new template whenever I want, or I can make an adjustment to an existing template by hitting Edit. When I edit a template, I'll get this drag and drop interface. So over here on the left, I can kind of get a preview of what it's going to look like. One thing to be aware of, it shows work orders, milestones, projects, and everything. These tables, they only appear if the type of invoice you're generating includes that. So if you have an invoice without any tasks, then it's not going to show this tasks table. You don't have to be worried about that. So up here, you'll see I've got like the logo and all the basic business details. If I wanted to remove something, it's as simple as just hitting the X mark right there. And if I wanted to add a new piece of information, basically I just have to figure out where is that information coming from. So let's say I had one of those custom attributes on my invoice, and I wanted that to show in here. So I could click Invoice Custom Attributes. You can see here's my two sections of attributes I had, so the fields I could have filled in, and I can click and I can drag over an entire group of fields, or I can drag an individual one. And then that means that any of those custom attributes filled in would populate here on the PDF file. And you'll notice we have several different areas you can pull data. There's lots of different fields that you could pull in. We've only showed the basic details available here, but I can drag and drop and push this information into the template wherever I would like to have available. Okay, so that's the PDF template editor. You can play around with that, just customize the look and feel of your invoice. And the next one is the message. So the message templates, they apply to two different things. One is when you're first sending out that email, there is an email message. So just like, hey, here's your invoice. Thanks for doing business with me. And then there's also the messages for our payment reminders. So I mentioned we can set it up where when an invoice is 14 days overdue, we're going to send a specific message. So here I've got my standard computer services message where maybe I have one message I send depending on the type of service that's included. And it's pretty basic. Basically, I'm just going to name my template, computer services, and then I have the subject line and the message that gets sent to the customer. So the only thing here is I would type in whatever message I want, but you'll notice in a couple spots it says like contact first name. And this information will be dynamically replaced whenever you generate this message. So that means it's going to replace customer name with whichever customer is assigned to the invoice that is for this message. And this link to invoice is that link to the web page. So for example, if I'm in a business who never wants to accept online payments, I just want them to have the PDF file, I could remove the link to invoice, and then the customer would never be able to get to that page to try pay online. So here, I got it completely customizable. If I wanted to add a new field, there's actually just buttons over on the left. So you can see like, hey, if I don't want to call them, or let's say I want to call them by their first name and last name, then I could actually say contact first name, then just click the button, and it would throw in the second variable. So I can make this look and feel however I'd like. And as you notice, I can manage multiple different templates, and that's for the reason of this. So let's talk about the reminders real quick before we head off. So reminders, very cool feature. Basically, like I said, you can set up a threshold. So here you can see I've got 20 and 10 days past due, and I can say what's going to happen at that point. So basically, there's two things I can do. Is one, I'm going to select what message goes out. So obviously, 1 day after it's past due is a pretty friendly message, but 1 year after it's past due, you're not going to be so friendly with the messaging in there. And also you can send, or you can choose how it's going to get delivered. So maybe you're perfectly okay with a friendly warning going out 10 days after every invoice, so friendly reminder message, and I'm just going to have it send automatically. But let's say for the ones that are a little bit less friendly, where maybe I want to double check, make sure there was no error before I go send out that reminder, I could say that one should get queued up and wait for approval. So you'll notice I've got these two thresholds where this is how I created them, as I just said. You can see it's real simple. 10, pick the message template, and automatically send, and that produced this one. And basically what it's saying is at 10 days, I'm going to send out my friendly message. It's going to go out without me knowing about it. It's just going to happen. But at 20 days, it's going to draft a message, which is a little bit more of a demand for payment, and it's going to show it in my queue. So that means 20 days after something is past due, I'd be able to click in payment reminders, and I would see a reminder pending right here that I would have the option to send, but it wouldn't be delivered until I explicitly said it was okay. And that's it. So I mean, that would be the reminder system. Other than that, there's tons of other features available, so we didn't even dive into the details of generating an invoice from a project or various ways to do that. So what I would like to leave you with is how to take the next steps and find more information if you need to. So I'll bring back up right here, but basically you can feel free to contact the general support team or myself directly. If you have like basic questions, anything that you need immediate support with, definitely contact the support team. But what I thoroughly recommend is checking out the answer site. So we have tons of information available here that it should answer just about every question you have. So let's say, for example, I want to know how to convert project, or let's just say like what project to invoice conversions are available. I can type in something like that, and then I'm going to see all the various options related to it. So I can see here, how do I invoice one single milestone of a project, or how do I convert a project to a timesheet, or how do I invoice from a project directly? There's all these different flows that you can do, and we have a step-by-step guide on each and every one of them. So you just be able to click here, and then you'll get some a nice step-by-step with all the individual screenshots and everything you need in order to figure this out on your own. So yeah, I mean, with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. If there's any final questions, go ahead and ask them now, and if not, I'll be dropping off in a few moments. But thank you all for attending, and I hope you have a great day.